Hi there, it's Jim Craddock here. Today is Tuesday, February 2024. And had a lot going on health-wise over the last couple weeks. Really not going to spend much time on it other than saying uh, all the issues I've had with my muscles and my shoulders and everything. I can tell that, so whatever that process is, if that is candidiasis, doing its whole running the sodium potassium pump in reverse, that it has kind of worked its way through. While my flexibility is not back, in fact, I went to my first physical therapy session yesterday. She noted that my left side, which is the second side that was impacted, it has much more restricted than my right side, which is the first side, which that was last July when it was first impacted. So and the left side didn't get impacted until months later. And so that kind of makes sense if you think about it, like the process of, okay, start on the right side, the one that's going to be kind of used up first, and it's going to be the right side, and then the left side still has some pain, still has some sensitivity, etc. But is much better than it has been. So what happened? Well, in general, about 3 weeks ago, I had a lot of sudden burning in my shoulders and muscles in that area. I had to ice them. I think I probably reported something about this. And then suddenly I had like kind of just literally I hear this loud sound from the left side of my abdomen. And that led to, let's say, rapid emptying of the bowels, and some, let's say, followed by some slowness over the next couple of days. And then I had cramping, not cramping. So that's the wrong word. I had aching of that area of just my general abdomen. So this wasn't wall pain, because I've had that. That was like in 2022. This was like intestinal aching. I've also had very sharp pains in my intestines before. This was not that. That was in 2023 when the circulation was being altered in that area. So, uh, you know, uh, uh, you know, went through a couple days of just serious aching of my abdomen, after which felt great, no pain. It was great. I have more mobility, less pain in my shoulders. My abdomen is not hurting. But losing weight, I've lost about 15 pounds over the last 3.5, 4 weeks. I probably look a little thinner. And then on Saturday of this week, I went out and had a burger, and got home, was watching TV at about 9:30, and suddenly I had, what honestly kind of would feel like food poisoning, but kind of brief, is, got all hot and sweaty, cramping, everything got emptied, and then nothing, basically. Felt okay the next day. So that was Sunday. Today's Tuesday. So, I don't even know exactly where we are, but I made a web entry today, and this is the first time I'm going to do this. I haven't done this before. I'm going to read it. And it says it's a 6-minute read. I don't know if that's based on my reading speed or what, but just because I don't know that these websites are going to be there forever, and I've got more faith in my YouTube video being there for a while. Okay, so the post is titled Alternative Energy Pathways. This is a phrase I used in my original write-up, and one of my contentions that is probably among the most controversial and difficult to explain. I'm going to try and explain what I understand about it here. Please realize this is only a partial understanding from a limited set of knowledge. With the initial treatment so back in 1995, that creates the iatrogenic condition, the pituitary takes over regulation of the electrolytes from the hypothalamus. It does this through hormonal control. This is a fundamental change in physiology, basically creating something that's not seen in any other human beings. From there, various stages are entered over decades as a battle wages between the pituitary and the candidiasis, where basically it just tries to keep it out of circulation. It tries to keep it out of your system. The original article discussed how the pituitary was basically put into overdrive. And these changes impact a multitude of things, some immediately and some over time. I am unclear on when this particular part changes, but I think it was with the initial change. What I'm talking about is a change in how ATP is generated. The article stated, and I remember this distinctly, the condition is all about ATP. And I've said that multiple times in my write-ups. Every phase, every change is ATP related. Among the initial changes are two very significant ones. First, somehow through the charges on blood cells, the circulatory system becomes inhospitable to the candidiasis. So it is then forced into the surrounding cells, into the cell, which shouldn't be possible. The modulation of the immune system that turns off the cellular defenses to the candidiasis allows it to persist, though, inside of these cells. Once inside the cells, it produces ATP by reversing the sodium-potassium pump. This obviously has issues in that it treats the cell like a battery, and eventually it shrinks it and uses all the energy potential. This leaves the cells in an apoptotic state, essentially wrapping the candidiasis in a cellular prison, until later when sugars reach the cell and activate the candidiasis. All of that is not supported by currently available science. It is a travesty that the research has been redacted. However, the article discussed something else that I have never done a good job explaining, and I'm sure I won't do a great job of it today, 28 years after reading the article. The article talked about how due to pH changes, during most of the phases, insulin did not act normally. Somehow the pH shift causes insulin to be less effective, but another energy pathway took over. This alternative pathway is a type of hemolysis. I believe this is related to the phagocytic process I have mentioned elsewhere. I will attempt to explain what I can recall of this phagocytic process changes and its effects. As the immune system is modulated by the initial treatment and the pituitary goes into overdrive, two things happen to the immune system. The first I've mentioned is turning off of some part that would normally defend the cells and recognize the invading candidiasis. The second modulation is some type of compensatory mechanism. Basically, because one part of the immune system is turned off, another part is turned up. This part has to do with how dead necrotic cells are treated. Essentially, these cells are rapidly consumed by something. I'm not sure if the consumer is a white blood cell. It should be, but the article also talked about how charges on the blood cells are changed, and one type of cell can be mistaken for another type of cell, and the age of cells can be mistaken due to the charge and the size of the cells. However, this change has another dramatic effect. Whatever this change is, it also recognizes glycosylated cells as prey, okay, and consumes them. This process somehow also generates ATP. Over time, this becomes the dominant method of ATP generation as all the other cells in the system are used up. And I'm going to add here kind of just ad hoc that I think that the system with the reverse of the sodium potassium pump, I think that's a pretty close balance for normal ATP generation. But I think that once we get to this other, it's a less close balance. So you're getting less ATP. But anyway, so the insulin does not work well, but blood sugar levels are maintained at normal levels because the red blood cells are consumed, the glycosylated red blood cells, that is. As the article said, the patient has diabetes, but with normal blood sugar levels. Now think about that for a second. So the insulin isn't working. They should have high blood sugar, right? But they don't, because the whatever process that exists is consuming these glycosylated red blood cells. Let's not go into the how because I cannot explain the specifics. Instead, let's examine what you might expect to see as a result. You might see anemia. I did test as anemic one time, but that is it, and it was a long time ago. So my body has somehow been producing enough red blood cells to make up for the lost cells. You might see an irregular distribution of cell sizes, indicating too many immature cells. However, this is accounted for and explained by the article by the changes in pH and kind of I'm trying to look for the right word. I don't know what the right word would be, but by the changes in pH and the charges on the cells, resulting in a swelling of the cells. So it's charges on the cells, it's the fluid levels, and the fluid levels inside and outside the cells, and the charges can cause the cell sizes to change. The article was quite clear that blood counts would appear normal from an electronic machine, but it explained this saying that really they weren't normal. It's just that they look normal because the cells could be confused. A blood gas should or would show irregularities, but those are almost never done as they must be done by a physician. So if you want to draw blood for ABG or a VBG, if for some reason it has to be a physician. And I've had one that I know of, and it was abnormal. It was a long time ago. But it was overly basic. I think if you did one now, it'd be overly acidic. That's what the article talked about. It talked about how in the end, they have this very acidic circulatory system, and they're burning ketones. Their blood isn't compatible with anybody else's blood. So anyway, the other thing you might expect, however, are high BUN levels. That's blood, urea, and nitrogen. If red blood cells are being broken down at an abnormal rate, high BUN levels would be a primary expected finding. This is actually the most common abnormal result I've had over the years, with mine almost always being abnormally high in the 25 to 32 range. Now, here one could argue that this is similar to PNH and would show up with hemoglobinuria. Okay, so that's hemoglobin showing up in your urine. However, this is yet another insidious factor of the disease that prevents many expected warning signs from showing up in the urine. Here, I will readily lose every clinician because what I'm saying is not present in any other condition, and thus they have absolutely no frame of reference, as if someone simply deleted a chapter from their training. The suction of the effect of the heart, which is the primary cause of the onset of everything in this condition, happening at the very beginning, along with the reduction in blood volume, causes the kidneys to stop functioning in their normal capacity over the course of these last 2 years. However, the suction of the heart somehow allows for filling of the bladder by filtering fluids from the overflow or leakage of the circulatory system. Somehow those fluids are pulled into the bladder. This process means the bladder wall acts as a filter, preventing things like blood cells and excessive proteins from ever showing up in the urinalysis. I realize how absurd this sounds. I know how physiology works, and what I am suggesting runs counter to everything that is taught about how basic physiology works. However, if you assume it to be true and work backwards and forwards to the logical conclusions, I think you'll see that it would explain a lot. My kidney pain presented in early 2022. Upon drinking any amount of water, I would suffer tremendous back pain that would slowly subside. This was after the initial polyuria phase, where I lost about 35 pounds via dark urine in 2 months. So I lose all this weight, I'm losing volume, and my kidney functions essentially change. And once again, it's not reflected. There's more to go into here, but that's the essential. I'm fairly sure I document it in my lengthy initial webpage. The other thing that there is really no way to hide is the effect on the bones. The overproduction of red blood cells puts a strain on the bone marrow. This is multiplied by the malnutrition caused by the other impacts of the overall condition on nutrient absorption due to the changes in circulation in the gut. I have notable osteopenia. I have broken ribs with just my body weight resting on a hard surface as I went over an obstacle wall in a race. So say that's literally in the 20 to 50 pounds, maybe not even that much a square inch. So maybe 20 pounds a square inch. whereas you should be able to take hundreds of pounds on your ribs. They should be very strong. The article discussed how eventually the marrow is unable to create red blood cells and can only produce the white blood cells. Those are the macrophage types. So those then attack the only thing they can attack, which is the other tissues in the body in order to generate ATP. So once we get to that point, all bets are off. So I'm sure I have some of that wrong, and I know it is all unconventional. However, the overall condition is not naturally occurring, and thus I believe it is reasonable to expect unconventional science to be part of the explanation. On that note, I did have a comprehensive blood panel performed yesterday, and my alkaline phosphatase levels are abnormally low for the first time. They've been trending lower and lower, but they're abnormally low for the first time, while my BUN and my BUN creatinine levels are excessively high. Low alkaline phosphatase levels can indicate liver dysfunction and or bone marrow exhaustion. I think both are likely. I want to add one more thing to this analysis, and I've said this before. The original experiments that I read about were conducted in the early 20th century. I can date them by the disease that caused the condition they were treating the patients for, the quality of the photos, the fact they had ice cream in containers, the use of a shot of adrenaline, and more. The science behind much of the explanation of the condition was not discovered until the 1930s and later. For example, the Krebs cycle was discovered in 1937. So those early 20th century treatments were not the only round of these experiments. The article mentioned the condition had been looked into for a super soldier program. I get what that sounds like. Like, people think super soldier program, okay, you're tinfoil hat. Okay, if you don't think the government has had a super soldier program, you need to do at least a little reading and then realize that whatever you're reading is like just dipping the toe in the water of what they probably tried. I believe that inquiry and the poor outcome is why the science has been redacted. So them looking into it for the super soldier program and the poor outcome inevitably for the patient is why they've redacted it. However, I'm left wondering if treatments for the condition could have been developed that would prolong the life of someone with the condition. I cannot think of a reason why someone that was carefully monitored and aware of their condition and educated about it could not be given a treatment regimen that would dramatically prolong the life of a subject with a condition. Okay, let's look at me. I've managed to make it 28 years, and I know I did things that served to both prolong and shorten my life expectancy. So, if you think about it, someone who knows, who's being cared for by medical people, I think that they could have a very long lifespan. And so if they looked into this after the 30s, how long would those people have lived? So let's say they lived 30, 40 years, and they did it in, let's say, the early 40s. So those people lasted until at least the 1980s, by definition. So anyway, and it kind of puts them in the post-Nuremberg era, definitely questionable territory, would not want that fact that they had done those experiments to become public. Yeah, all that sounds tinfoil hat, but it honestly is perfectly logical. So I don't know what to do except to say that that's how it is. So that's it for today. I got a meeting I got to jump into, but this is Jim Craddock. Hey, please share my story. Terminal onset diabetes insipidus with candidiasis major. It's an iatrogenic condition that I gave myself to save myself from another condition. And for whatever reason, the research on it has been completely redacted. It's not available online. And, it's a travesty. Thank you.